The South Alabama Jaguars join us here, and head coach Kane Womack. Kane, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
What a difference a year makes. You guys picked second in the West, coming off the first 10-win season in program history. How do you embrace that? Does the momentum carry over from one season to the next? Do you embrace that momentum, or you try to discount that and say that was last year's team? You this year, you got to build your own thing this year.
I think both is the answer, right? There's a piece of you that you want this for our program, right? You want to be relevant, right, in college football, especially as the landscape is changing ever quickly right now. For us to be able to lay the foundation that took really years to get to this point to where we could compete at a high level, and now to have all this experience coming back. You want to focus on the things that you're doing well, but you also want to be really aggressive about the things that you've got to improve on from one year to the next. And I think we're doing that this offseason.
In the spring, you talked about cranking the dial forward. Kind of elaborate on what you meant by that.
Well, I think when you have all this experience back, Major Applewhite is our offensive coordinator, Corey Batoon is our defensive coordinator, 20 returning starters really with a couple guys that are coming back from injury last year. All of that goes into if each person will just crank the dial forward in their individual job, whether it be Carter Bradley or Major or myself as a head coach or an offensive lineman, just doing their part to move that dial just a little bit forward from where we were in 2022, I think we'll like the outcome of 2023.
You guys were 7-1 in the conference last year. Your only loss was to Troy, 10-6 on your field. You played them there this year. You know, if the predictions are right, that game could be the one that decides the West Division who plays in the championship game again. How has that, what happened last year, the expectations for both teams this year, ratcheted up the rivalry there?
Yeah, well, I think the Sun Belt in general is really competitive. But, growing up with college football, son, right, my dad had a long career. I've seen a lot of different rivalry games. It's fun when your rivalry game also means so much in terms of the conference race. And so it's exciting to see what John Summerall has done over at that program in a short amount of time. It's fun to have that as an in-state rivalry. It's great for the state of Alabama and certainly great for both of our institutions. And it'll be one hell of a fight this year, I would imagine.
No doubt about it. Last week you were in Washington, D.C. You met with Senator Tommy Tuberville, the former Auburn Tigers head coach. Senator Katie Britt, whose husband Wesley played at the University of Alabama. Yeah. You were there to talk NIL legislation, and I know we can't do a deep dive on that, but kind of what are you and coaches around the country looking for from Washington in regard to NIL?
Well, I think, NIL is a great opportunity for our student athletes across the board, not just football, but all athletics. What we need, though, is we need a little bit of uniformity. Right now, each state is kind of operating within their own confines and making their own laws kind of as we go. But we need the market to settle just a little bit. And until we have some transparency across the board, I don't know if we'll get that. And I think we're now at a position that Congress is going to have to step in and do their part. And so I went to meet with our two senators and every member of Congress from the state of Alabama, just to be a resource to them and to give our perspective. And I think it's really important that the Sun Belt has representation on Capitol Hill, right, when these big decisions get made.
Let's do a position breakdown here. Let's take a deep dive on your team. Let's start with the defense. You got 10 starters back. Keith Gallman's coming back after not playing last year because of injury. He's in your secondary. Yam Banks, we're going to talk to him in just a few minutes. He comes back in the secondary. You do have to replace Darrell Luter, fortunately for him, 5th-round pick in the NFL draft. Let's start with your secondary as we take a look at your defense.
Well, one of the most exciting things about our secondary is just the overall experience and production. I mean, these guys are not only returning starters, but they're also high producers. Keith Gallman's a first-team all-conference guy, Yam Banks with All-American honors, and then Jaden Voisin led our team in tackles last year from a free safety position. I think our corner room, obviously, Darrell Luter had a tremendous career for us. I think probably collectively we got a little bit more depth going into year 3 than what we did in year 1 and 2. But everything makes it a little bit easier when you got that defensive line up front operating at a really high level with guys like Jamie Sheriff and Bubba Thomas up there.
What better name for an enforcer on the defensive line than Jamie Sheriff?
Yeah.
And he does. He comes back with 6 quarterback sacks. Bubba Thomas earned second-team preseason honors.
Yeah. I think, that's a really impressive unit. 7 of those 8 guys on the defensive line and scholarship already have their degrees. They're really impressive young men on and off the field. And I think when you have the guys that are up front that are the leaders and the standard bearers of your program, you're going to see those things come to fruition on the football field as well.
In the linebacker core, Trey Kaiser comes back. He had 11 TFL last year. James Miller was productive. Gavin Forsha, which one is it?
Yeah, Forsha.
Forsha, Gavin Forsha from Kansas State. Kind of intriguing in that he had a really nice career there and then dropped off a little bit, but he could be a big productive player for you as well.
You know, holistically, the transfer portal has been a really great resource for us, and I know everybody has their opinions about it. What we've been able to do is we've been able to retain our best players, which is a huge accomplishment right now in college football. But we've also been able to bring a number of young men like Gavin, like Carter Bradley, like LaDamian Webb into our program, and I think that really is a recipe for success. Nowadays, you've got to have a steady balance of high school and transfer portal talent coming in.
Well, let's get to the offense. And Carter Bradley, young man who's going to join us here in just a few moments, I think has a chance to challenge Grayson McCall for perhaps Offensive Player of the Year in this conference.
Well, I mean, you think about Grayson McCall's career, right? That's an impressive accolade of Carter in just a short amount of time to compete at such a high level to be considered. I'm really proud of the individual accolades that our players have accomplished. What I love more, right, is they are so focused on what we're doing as a team collectively that they don't let those things get in the way. But you know, I'm the proud head coach in the background, cheering each of those individuals on, and so excited about what Carter is going to accomplish with our team this year.
And if not Carter, maybe LaDamian Webb, as you mentioned a few moments ago, close to 1,100 yards rushing, right around 15 total touchdowns last year. That's a nice piece to have back in your running game.
Well, when you think about, you know, the combination, I'd say that's as competitive and challenging of a backfield right to defend in Carter Bradley and LaDamian Webb. But on top of that, I think the offensive line has probably had the greatest improvement in our program over the last 3 years. It's not just the LaDamian Webb show, right? We've got Braylon McReynolds that had a breakout true freshman year. Kentrell Bullock just came in as a transfer from Ole Miss, a very explosive player, and then Marco Lee, a transfer from Virginia Tech. Really excited about that group. And then you look to the outside, right, and we've got a number of weapons that we can utilize as well. But very proud of the work of that offensive line and all the strides that they've made over the last 2 years.
In fact, 2 of those wideouts earned second-team honors in the preseason. Colin Lacey, Devin Voisin as well. And then you bring in Javon Ivory, a transfer, I think, from Memphis, who has like 100 catches in his career.
Catches in his career, a 3-year starter, come from Memphis, another point to the transfer portal that you can utilize. I think it's so important you get the right young men, right? Javon Ivory has just come in and become a great teammate. He works his tail off every single day, you know, along with guys like Colin Lacey and Devin Voisin, who came in as freshmen, both had over 65 catches as their sophomore year, heading into their junior seasons is really exciting for them. It's amazing the impact that you have that when your best players are also your hardest workers on the team, and that's what we're seeing right now, particularly with Devin Voisin and Colin Lacey.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument, and certainly the preseason all-conference team kind of reflects that Voisin and Lacey might be the second best, or certainly one of the top 2 wide receiver combos in the country, in the Sun Belt, when you compare it to what Coastal has coming back with Pinckney and having with Jared Brown.
I think you had it right the first time. I'd argue the country as well. I think those guys are tremendous players, and they play with such great confidence. They're really great teammates. Oftentimes a wide receiver room is going to be a selfish room, and those guys aren't that way, and you've got a quarterback that can get the ball around to just about anybody on the field. So really excited about that unit and the production that they're have had, but also excited about what they can do in our future.
Let's talk about your schedule. You're going to open here in New Orleans against Tulane. They were just picked today to be the favorites to win the American Conference, so good for them. And you're kind of going old school off the top, 4 straight non-conference games. I like it like that. And then you get into your conference schedule and you open on the road at James Madison on September 30.
This is by far, our most challenging schedule since we've been here under my tenure at South. Great competitors want to compete at the highest level. And when you look at it opening up against a great team in Tulane that had a tremendous season last year, those are the games that you want to be in as competitors. And so the experience that we have coming back, I'm excited about the opportunity. I think it's a real challenge early on in the season. But you look at our schedule, and I think it's fair to say that every time we step on the field, we're going to have an opportunity to win those games.
And you have 3 national TV games, starting with the Tulane game on September 2nd, and then 2 of the midweek games, Southern Miss on October 17th, and then the battle for the belt, the Troy game coming up on November 2nd.
Right. Those are exciting, those midweek games, right? A lot of great exposure for your programs, a lot of national attention. The Sun Belt is rapidly becoming the premier Group of 5 conference in college football. And the more that we can get in those opportunities and windows to show what this conference is capable of, especially as you start seeing some of the realignments and college football playoff outlook in going into 2024.
And not that I have to tell you, probably already noticed, you got the shorter week going into the Troy game with Louisiana on the Saturday before.
Yeah. Fortunately, they have the same deal, right? So we both have a 5-day window. It'll be equal to prepare. Pretty awesome. You look at some of the battles against Troy over the last few years. Obviously, we came up short a year ago. It was a great game, very competitive game, and one that our players will certainly be looking to respond to this year.
So 7-1, 10 wins, a year ago for the first time ever in program history, albeit not a long program history as we know. What's next on the table? Next goal to knock off.
Very, very proud of our accomplishments in 2022. But a lot of opportunities still left there on the table. Certainly, the battle for the belt would be one of those things. We don't really put team goals in our locker room and talk about those things from a big picture standpoint. But I will say what's exciting for us is this team, I think, is probably more focused on those 3 losses we had more than the 10 wins. They strive every day to become the best versions of themselves, and if we'll stay focused on that, we're going to like the outcome of the season.
Of course, your dad coached in the Southeastern Conference and around the country for a long time. We were talking about a fellow acquaintance, John Thompson, another that you're very familiar with, that I know as well. How did coming up around the game as a coach's son mold you and prepare you for what you're doing now going into your 3rd season at South Alabama?
Certainly on the field, right? My dad had a tremendous 38-year career as a defensive coordinator, #1 defense in the country at multiple stops. Those are all really great things. But I think if you ask about the legacy of Dave Womack, the way he carried himself in this profession, he never burnt bridges. He treated everyone with respect. He grew the young coaches and players underneath him. And a lot of those people have gone on to have tremendous careers themselves. And so how to navigate as a leader, as a husband and a father, I think those were some of the learning curves, right, that maybe gave me an opportunity to be a head coach at a younger age.
So as you walk off the field, do you check your phone? Or are there texts from your dad that you probably should have maybe not gone for it on 4th down and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm going to get some comments every now and then. Those things are good. The best investment I probably made in our program is I bought an iPad for $350, and he watches all of our film and practices, and I get tons of great feedback from him.
He breaks it down for you and then sends you the report, right?
That's right. Yeah.
There you go. What a valuable resource that would be. Rocky, let's send it over to you.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. I'm sitting alongside Carter Bradley, a quarterback for South Alabama, threw for over 3,300 yards last year, and Yam Banks, all-conference safety for the Jaguars. Carter, I want to start with you. Just revisit last year real quick, a magical 10-win season. Was there a point in that season as it was going on where you knew you guys had turned the corner? You knew you guys in that program was onto something special?
I think that really started in January, from, the year before. And when I came in, you could sense something good was about to happen for the year coming up. So just coming in, being part of the culture, you could feel that something good was happening. And then throughout the year, we just kept it one game at a time. So, and that was the biggest thing, is just one game at a time, make sure, we know our calls, what we're supposed to do on offense or defense or special teams, and just kind of go about it like that.
And your offense did great last year, 4th ranked in the Sun Belt in scoring. But there's a lot of folks, myself included, think there's even more production that can come from this offense. Make a case for why this offense can be even more explosive this year.
Yeah, and it starts with the maturity of this team. I mean, we got so many guys coming back on the defensive side too, but on the offensive side, guys have played a lot of ball. They've seen a lot of things. I think being in another year of Coach Applewhite's offense, guys are comfortable. They understand what we're trying to get done and where they need to go. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to just continue to get better, and I think we can capitalize on that.
Talk about yourself real quick, just about, last year at this time you're coming into a program, you're brand new to it, you're trying to learn who's who and the scheme and all that. Much more different scenario this year. Just talk about the difference and maybe where it's a little bit more comfortable for you right now.
Yeah, details are the biggest thing of this offseason. Just going back, watching all the games with Applewhite, and just making sure we can fine-tune some things to make sure, play actions look a whole lot better. Everything's cleaner, kind of cutting some things out of the read game and just kind of making things simpler.
Absolutely. If you could, just describe Major Applewhite's offense. So what are the themes? What's a Major Applewhite offense all about?
Yeah, lots on the quarterback's plate, that's for sure. Protections, run game. You're the sergeant. You're the guy. You got to know it like the back of your hand. That's the biggest thing. But he does an unbelievable job at getting me prepared and the other quarterbacks. So every week we feel comfortable and confident going in with our checks and what we need to do to be successful.
And yeah, let's sort of switch over to you. Obviously, your defense led the charge there with the success that South Alabama had. And as Coach mentioned, you guys returned not only a lot of players, but a lot of players that were very productive. Just talk about what it's like to play with a group like that.
It's a great feeling. The chemistry is already there. And, for me having to step up this season from losing, the starters that we did have, it's going to be even more easier for me to communicate out there.
We talked about how this offense this year has more that it can do. From a defensive standpoint, what are some things make a case for why this defense can be even better than it was last year?
I feel like, we always play fast, physical, and, keep the ball always in our hand at all times. So I feel like we keep that up, we're going to be good.
So you got yourself, you got Wakevius Thomas. And name another player, maybe someone that you've just seen in camp recently that you think can come on and be a very productive player for you guys.
I feel like Marquise Robinson, Cuddy. He's the corner that plays outside, like how he's just bringing the energy to the defense at all times. He's always driven to keep going.
And just for yourself, as a safety, talk about from your perspective, what do great safeties do that good safeties don't?
I feel like great safeties, I feel like they communicate a lot. Like every play, you got to talk every play. Make sure everybody's doing the right thing. And, disguises, great safeties always disguise what they're doing, because a quarterback, they can always tell, like, if you're a man or if you're dropping back, you always got to have a disguise.
Absolutely. And one more question for you, Carter. What makes Kane Womack such a good leader for your team?
I mean, he's been through it. He played. He's a coach's son. He's been around ball. He just understands us. That's the biggest thing. If you can relate to a coach, I feel like that puts you at a great advantage. So, we're always on the Kane train. We're always rocking with him. So
the Kane train,
yeah.
I like that. South Alabama looking for another great season. Matt, back to you.
The Kane train, did you coin that? Did you
No,
tell him to say that?
No, I will never coin the Cane train. So
Very good, Kane train. And by the way, as we're watching the video, great uniform combinations. You got a lot of multiple options there, going red and blue and mixing it all up. Looks good.
certainly representing our nation's colors at USA. Right?
Absolutely. The South Alabama Jaguars with us here in the Bank Plus studios.